Hey everybody, and welcome to my preliminary top 10 games of 2022. So I want to make it very clear that this list is very much likely to change because there are a ton of games out there that I'm pretty sure I'll like, but have yet to have a chance to get to the table because generally games are slower to get to the UK shores. So I'm talking about games such as Woodcraft, I've got Mosaic on the way, I've got Sabika, but I've yet to play it yet, and games like Revive as well, another one that I'm pretty sure I'll like. But despite me not playing those games, there are 10 very solid games here that I would recommend. And I'm going to be pretty brief in my overviews of these because I have reviewed 9 out of 10 of these games and one review is coming. So, if you want to know more about them, then please do check out those videos. I'm also going to do 2 lists. The first one is going to be new releases and the second one is going to be new releases, but including reprints or re-implementations. But before I get into the top 10 games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer when it comes to purchasing board games here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 10, I have First Rat, which is a game that very much caught me by surprise. I wasn't sure what to expect with this one because it does have a very much family-friendly, almost childish aesthetic to it. But the designer was Virginio Gigli, so he's one of my favourite designers ever, so I'm going to check out anything he puts out there. And I was quite surprised about how the game actually plays, because despite being very simple, it does have some meat on the bones here, as you are climbing up this track with your rats, trying to get to a spaceship, collecting resources as you go, getting little engine benefits and special powers as you go as well, and just increasing your yield and picking up resources, cashing them in. Being the fastest to do things means more points in this one. I thought it was a very nice cohesive game. Definitely strikes that cool balance between being accessible but still thinky enough to keep you entertained for a while. So yeah, check out my review. That is First Rat at number 10. At number 9, I have Next Station London, which is a flip and write style game with a difference, as each round you are going to take control of a different coloured pencil, which represents a different kind of subway line in London. Then all you're going to do is you're going to flip a card over and you're going to draw a line from an existing railway line to the new one matching the shape on the card. And what you're trying to do is try to get as many points as you can by venturing in all to these different grid references. You're trying to hit several spots within the same grid reference, and then they're going to multiply with each other. There's also going to be additional points based on how many times you cross the River Thames and how many times you use the same junctions for each of your railway lines. So I like the way that as the game goes on, it becomes more and more restrictive as you're running out of space and you can't actually cross your subways through the existing subways. So you really do have to plan things quite carefully and leave yourself some wiggle room or waste opportunities to lay new track. Really like this one. It's quite difficult to make a good or fresh flip and write style game nowadays, but Next Station London managed to do that. At number 8, I have Heroba, which was another game that came out of nowhere for me. So this is an area majority game based on the concept of Sudoku. And the mechanisms in this game could not be more simple, as all you're doing is you are deploying one of your player pieces onto this grid or this map. And you could only ever build in the rows and columns as to where you've previously placed a piece, but there are further restrictions as you cannot have the same number deployed in that same row or column or in the same box either. So another game that gets tighter as you go, and you can use that to block players from trying to trump you into taking control of these different regions. But I did like this kind of double-edged sword where when you deploy things, the higher value tokens are great because they're more likely to give you majorities in the different regions, but the lower ones are also great because you are trying to control these kind of koi ponds by having the lowest value there, and if you do, you can actually double the value of a region that you are scoring to get double the points. So I really like this one. It definitely slotted into my collection very well. I can get this to the table almost any time, and despite being so simple, it does have some good decisions to be made here. So a quirky little game. That is Heroba at number 8. At number 7, I have Caesar Seize Rome in 20 minutes. So this is a 2-player head-to-head game by Paolo Mori, which is kind of a spiritual successor to Blitzkrieg, which was another kind of head-to-head 2-player game. But this has a whole different concept as you are trying to fight for majorities on this map of Europe. But you're going to do that by deploying these tokens from behind this hidden screen, and these tokens are split in half with 2 different values. Generally, they're either going to be well balanced or pretty imbalanced in terms of one side might be a high number and the other side will be a low number. And then you're deploying these tokens on these borders between these different regions, meaning that one side is going to contribute to your influence in one region and the other to the other region. And then you're obviously trying to have majorities. If you have the majorities when that region's closed, then you're going to deploy a control token, and it's going to be a race to deploy as many control tokens or all your control tokens before your opponent does. However, there are other things you need to consider, because if you control adjacent regions, you can get rid of tokens even faster, and you can even collect these special tokens which can throw many spanners in the works, such as getting new tokens to play with, or being able to kind of remove influence tokens off your opponents, or being able to deploy tokens even faster again. A very well put together game, pretty confrontational in head-to-head, almost abstract in its approach, but it works very well for what it does, and it does area control at 2 players to an extremely high standard, which not many games do. At number 6, I have Longshot, the dice game. So this game I actually didn't really have an intention of playing or adding to my collection, but I managed to play this one at a convention. I enjoyed it that much that I bought myself a copy right away. So this is a roll and write betting and racing style game, all based on a horse race. You're going to be rolling a pair of dice. That's going to show which horses move. When one horse moves, it generally pushes other horses along as well, which is something players have control over. So you can actually tick things off other horses' sheets to make sure that when they move, other horses move as well. Of course, you are wagering on these horses, you are buying the horses, you are going to be pushing horses forward or moving them back. It's a very ruckus and boisterous experience, and one that flows very nicely. It caters to a high player count. It works pretty well at each of those player counts as well, and it's just a beautiful filler, and I enjoy this one so much. So that is Longshot, the dice game, at number 6. At number 5, I have Fiori by Dr. Rainer Knizia. So this is a point salad style game, as you are initially drafting these action cards and then taking these relevant actions associated to the drafts you've made. But all of these actions are very simple in their own right. They're kind of these little mini games where the more you go to the same mini game, the bigger rewards you're going to get. But because everybody knows what you might be doing, they can go to those mini games as well and try to cut you off. So you are essentially trying to build these pyramids of shapes, and the higher you build these pyramids, you score more points, or the people below you on those pyramids score points. You are building these networks of connecting symbols. You are kind of loading up these ships and trying to send them off, but everything you do kind of interacts with the other players, and you are rewarded for doing things faster, and generally whatever you do you get a bunch of points, but it's trying to get as many points as you can. Now I think this is a great drafting game. It feels different to a lot of other drafting games out there, and it's just, again, a very satisfying game that showers you in points, and it always feels fun as you're playing. So that is Fiori at number 5. At number 4, I have Acropolis, which is a family weight tile placement game, as you are drafting these tiles from this row and then placing them in your personal little city. And these tiles are quite an odd shape, as they are these 3 hexes stuck together. And then as you're laying these tiles down, you are trying to almost tailor your patterns to the different scoring criteria of those tiles. So they're all color coded and they all score in different ways. So for example, you want all the blue tiles to be touching each other, you want the yellow ones to be in isolation, you want the red ones to be on the border, you want the purple ones to be completely surrounded, and it's all trying to min-max how you're going to place them. But you need to be making sure you're drafting these multiplier tiles as well, otherwise all those different criteria aren't going to be worth anything. So it's all about balancing the two, trying to know when to jump ahead of your opponent and spend those additional resources to get the tile you want. And I love the way that you can start building on top of previous tiles to increase your multipliers and get more stone to get the tiles you want. A very nice game. It doesn't do anything especially new, but what it does in a very concise way. It only takes around 25 minutes to play, and it's just great. So that is Acropolis at number 4. At number 3, I have Marrakesh by Stefan Feld. So this for me is probably one of his most involved games. There's certainly a lot going on here. It's a big table hog and quite a sprawling game. But the fun factor is off the charts with this one, as you are dropping these different coloured tokens in this token tower, and then depending on what filters through is the options you potentially have by drafting them. And when you take these actions, you are going to get stronger and stronger versions of those actions depending on what you've taken before. So you can harvest resources faster, you can start getting better engine building tiles, you can climb tracks faster. all these different things. Again, it is a bunch of mini games, but I do like the way they all synergize. You can try different things each game. It's just a plethora of options at all times, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and one of Stefan Feld's coolest and most unique games that he's brought out in a while. So that is Marrakesh at number 3. At number 2, I have Caesar's Empire, which ironically is one of the lightest games on the list. Now, generally, I tend not to rate light games this high on my favourite games ever, but this one, it's really grabbed my attention and I adore it. So this one, you are simply going to be deploying these Roman legions on these different roads coming out from Rome. And when you reach a new city, you are going to be collecting 2 different types of tiles. The first of which is going to be this color-coded tile where each of the different colors you collect, you're going to score your highest of each type at the end of the game. But the other ones are going to be these little kind of item tokens where the more different types you collect, the more points you get. But also if you get duplicates of the same type, you can potentially get quite a lot of points there as well. But after that, I love the fact that you trace where you've just reached, as in the new city, back to Rome, and for every piece you pass through of your own or other players, they or you are going to get points. And I love the way you've got to try and benefit from that and not give too many points away to your opponents. You can be quite savvy in the way you cut people off and divert off different ways to try and make sure that you get the most points and they don't. It's just a very clever game, one that feels almost classic in its approach. It feels like something like Ticket to Ride, but with a little bit extra. And for me, it really has hit that sweet spot, and it feels like one that's going to be an evergreen for forever really. So that is Caesar's Empire at number 2. And finally, at number 1, my favourite game of 2022 is Toletum, which is the latest game in the Board and Dice T-Series and is a co-design by Simone Luciani and Daniele Cini. And for me, when they work together, everything they touch turns to gold. But this is a dice drafting game, but you have to consider 2 things when you draft the dice. Number 1 is, of course, the pip value, which will be how many resources you get. And the other one is the colour, which is what type of resource you have. But the reverse side of that, so for example, if you drafted a 6, you would get a strength 1 action. But if you drafted a strength 1, you would get a strength 6 action. So I love the way that, the more resources you get, the weaker action you get, and vice versa. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to travel around this map. You're trying to get these columns down where you can contribute to the churches. You're getting these little trade posts down, which will let you score points based on where these different festivals are taking place, based on modular scoring criteria. It's just a very well-rounded Euro, tons of potential to pull off great combos and chain reactions as you're collecting these bonus tokens as you go, but you have a capacity on how many of those tokens you can keep. So it's all about using them at the right time, knowing when to keep them or knowing when to spend them. This game ticks all the boxes for me for what I want from a Euro. It's pretty quick, it's very easy to teach, there's loads going on here and you cannot do it all. So that is Toletum at number 1. Okay, so let's very quickly go through the list, including reprints. I'm not going to give any explanation about these games. You're just going to have to check out the videos. At number 10, I have Get On Board, which is the reprint of Let's Make a Bus Route. Number 9, Caesar. Number 8, we have A Long Shot the Dice Game. Number 7, Fiori. Number 6, Acropolis. Number 5 would be Amsterdam, which is a reprint of a Stefan Feld game called Macau. At number 4, I have Hamburg, which is a reprint of another Stefan Feld game called Bruges. Number 3, we have Marrakesh. Number 2, Caesar's Empire. And number 1 would be Toletum. So just a few changes there. Get On Board managed to sneak onto the list, and those 2 Stefan Feld reprints would have made the top 10 as well. So there we have it. That concludes the video, at least that very early top 10 of 2022. Again, I'll probably do a final or more definitive top 10 towards the middle of next year once I've played those big titles. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.